I shouldn't have came online when I was eating a cookie. Thanks, Susan. I'm gonna put that down. I am unpacking a lot, and I wanted to record this video because something that I have seen and felt in myself, running through me and so many other people, is something called perfectionism. I know you've never heard that term before, and don't relate with the drive to be perfect at all. I'm being sarcastic. Okay. So, just a little like conceptualization and context for this short discussion on perfectionism. And it's that in the context of the dominant culture, capitalism, white supremacy, patriarchy culture, what I'm beginning to term more and more the culture of objectification. There's a sense that if I don't show up perfectly in my job, then I'll get fired. And then I won't have a home and food and health insurance and can't sustain myself. If I don't show up perfectly in my family, it's not safe to have arguments. And if I don't show up perfectly, then I'm going to be ostracized. People aren't going to want to be around me. I'm going to be alone. And my family, my friends are my people. They're all I have, you know? And it's another place that perfectionism in school, right? All of us, as far as I know, in our schooling system, were rewarded for good grades and punished in one way or another if we did not perform well. So perfectionism is ingrained in so many of the institutions in our culture, and it's held by that larger context of the system and the dominant culture, the culture of objectification. And then it shows up in our institutions, and then it shows up in our personal level. And what Tima Oken really named, and I'm going to link that below too, in her article on dismantling racism works and white supremacy culture, the hallmarks of white supremacy culture is perfectionism. And the reason that it hurts, and it hurts all of us. What I'm hearing is that it hurts, the drive to be perfect prevents us from doing anything. It leads to a cycle of inaction in things that matter, like dismantling white supremacy so that Black people can go to school and ride public transport and do all the things of living in this world without fear of death. That's important. That is life or death work. And if we're scared of showing up and saying something wrong and being ostracized, then we're just not going to do anything at all, which leads to performative allyship or a sense of it's not my fight when it is our fight. You know, racism is a problem of white people. It's not, I mean, Black people are raising awareness of it. Black and brown and indigenous people are like, hey, stop killing us. This is hurting. But it's for us to listen about the impact of it. But it's my job as a white person, a white educator, a white facilitator to say, hey, we're being harmed by this too. And when I am so caught up in being perfect and speaking perfectly and doing this perfectly, it prevents necessary work and conversations from being had, which harms the people who are being harmed the most and at the farthest edges of the periphery of this current dominator culture. So perfectionism in the culture serves to uphold the culture that is harming us, harming you. When we're so caught up in our body and our head of like, I can't speak, I gotta get it perfect. it prevents necessary conversations from happening. Speaking not of my experience of racism, since that's not my experience. My experience is fear of inhabiting my gender and my sexual orientation, and being misgendered, and the harm that I feel that has in my body, experience in my body, of when people, I can feel it when people are around me and there's like this, they want to get it perfect, and it just feels awkward. It feels so weird. They're tripping over their words. They're centering themselves and their discomfort rather than like, hey, I just messed up your pronouns. Like, I'm sorry. I'm going to do better. And then, doing better, working without me there to do better. Instead, what perfectionism leads us to do is center ourselves. So someone misgenders me, and they can like see that maybe it's on my face, and I'm like, and they're like, oh God, I'm sorry. It's just so hard. And I'm really trying. Please understand. It's so hard. And what that makes me do as the person who's just been harmed is put my feelings away and compartmentalize to make you feel better. You, whoever you are receiving this, the person who misgendered me. And it hurts. It hurts so deeply. And for me, as a person with intersecting privilege as well as marginalization, I can usually hold that. I can usually call people in, but there's days that I just feel like I've been sucker punched every minute or like every hour of the day, and it just it cracks me. It really takes an emotional toll to constantly be reassuring other people that they're a good person despite the harm that I'm experiencing in my body. So all of this to say that the drive of perfectionism centers the person who is so caught up in anxiety of being perfect rather than the person who is experiencing harm in their body and in their life. On both that personal level, the institutional level, and the system level. And that's, it's really not fair. And what I mean to say by all of this is that perfectionism is harming true, authentic relationships, right? Because if we're so worried about getting it right all the time, then we're in our head rather than in our body. We're in the future rather than in the moment. And then when we're out of that interaction, we're in the past thinking about how shitty a person we are and how we should have showed up better. So, what are some antidotes to perfectionism? That's important, right? I'm going to link a little document below that I received from the work of Dean Spade, who did a workshop on this and talks about what's good about perfectionism and what isn't so good. But the antidotes to perfectionism, as I see it and as I experience it, is naming and welcoming messiness and claiming how you're feeling. Like, hey, I'm coming into this conversation with, a lot of emotions. I'm not showing up totally even keel right now, and this conversation might be messy. I haven't had time to process. I have a lot of humanness coming through me right now. Sorry, not sorry. That's just how it is. You don't have to apologize. That is, just naming that, claiming it, feeling when you're like not your best and showing up anyway, because that's inviting and allowing people pushed to the periphery that have experiences of mental illness, neurodivergence, physical disability, mental disability. When you name it and it becomes more like culturally acceptable, you might have seen this trend in the past 5 years. When you name the struggle, it allows me, someone with more intersectionality, to name it too and to ask for accommodation, or just understanding that not gonna be perfect. Sorry, this video is not perfect. Sorry. So naming that, claiming it, a really important and beautiful assumption that was brought into the facilitation of Michelle Cassandra Johnson and Stephanie Ghostin Paul and Tristan Katz is, ready for this? Expect and accept non-closure. So what I love about this, expect and accept non-closure, is that it creates a container of this conversation in this moment with the understanding and the expectation and the acceptance of like, this is one conversation and it's not the end of the world because we can't say it all in this conversation. There's no way, right? So when we enter into interactions where we're like, oh, I'm feeling like I need to get this perfect, just realizing that like, expect and accept non-closure, that one interaction isn't going to make you a good person or a bad person. It's not going to lead to you being, ostracized or welcomed into community. At least not any community that is authentic and good, in my opinion. I shouldn't say good, anyway. Another antidote to perfectionism is slowing down. Because oftentimes when we're feeling anxious, we go really quick, and then we say something, do something that we're like, see, I'm such a mess. I never get it right. And if we just take a moment to like literally slow down and say something like, I need a moment to think about that. Or can I get back to you by 3 o'clock tomorrow? We give ourselves space to not show up perfect in a moment-to-moment way and really honor ourselves as being human, right? So those are a few antidotes to perfectionism as I see them. Notice as it's moving through you. Notice how it invites you to show up, but how it can also invite you to just be paralyzed. And sit with the discomfort. That's a huge antidote to perfectionism is meditation, yoga, sitting with the discomfort of inhabiting a body and a mind that vary on a moment-to-moment basis. So and doing that through yoga and meditation, right? So, the struggles of perfectionism, antidotes to them, maybe. And I'd love to hear if this is a new idea to you, how it's moving through you, what other antidotes you have to your perfectionist tendencies. Just welcome all of that and so much love to all of you. Later, dear ones, I'm going to finish my cookie.